You know that feeling, right, when you look at a $20 bill and you just know it doesn't go as far as it used to? Well, I'm here to tell you, it's not just in your head. It's a huge economic force at play, kind of like a financial mystery that we all have to deal with. So today, we're going to dive in and solve it. We're going to figure out why our money seems to be in a constant battle with losing its value.
So yeah, this is the big question. This is what we're digging into today. We're going to put on our detective hats, follow the money, and really understand this thing we call inflation. What is going on behind the scenes? What makes the price of literally everything, from your morning coffee to a brand new car, feel like it's on a one-way trip? Straight up.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to track down the prime suspect using a key piece of evidence, the money equation. Then we'll look at its accomplices, the other forces that help drive prices up. After that, we'll tally up the damage to our wallets. And finally, we'll learn a little financial detective work so you can see right through inflation's tricks.
Okay, let's get right to it with our number one suspect. The main theory that economists use to explain what really drives inflation in the long run is actually pretty simple, and it all boils down to one powerful equation. And this is it, the quantity theory of money. Now, I know it looks a little bit like something from a math textbook, but trust me, this thing is like the Rosetta Stone for understanding inflation. This little formula is what connects the amount of money floating around in an economy to the price of everything you buy. So let's break it down piece by piece.
First up is M, and that stands for the money supply. This one's pretty easy to grasp. It's all the cash, all the coins, all the money in bank accounts that's circulating in the economy. The most important thing to remember here is that M is mostly controlled by a country's central bank.
Next, we've got V, which stands for velocity. And this is a really cool concept. It's a measure of how fast money is moving through the economy. So think about it like this. If you get paid $1 and you immediately go spend it, and the person you gave it to immediately spends it again, that dollar has a really high velocity. It's changing hands super fast.
Now let's look at the other side of the equation, P times Y. Together, they give us the nominal GDP, which is just a fancy way of saying the total dollar value of everything a country makes and sells. It's made of two parts, P, which is the overall price level of everything, and Y, which is the real economic output, the actual stuff we produce and the services we provide.
Okay, so here's where this whole thing becomes super useful for figuring out inflation. If we make one simple assumption, that the velocity of money, V, stays pretty much the same over time, we can simplify the formula. It tells us that the rate of inflation, which is the change in P, is roughly the growth rate of the money supply minus the growth rate of the actual economy.
Let's make this real with an example. Imagine the central bank cranks up the money supply, M, by 10% in 1 year. But in that same year, the actual economy, all the stuff we have to buy, Y, only grows by 2%. Well, to make that equation balance out, prices, that's P, have to go up by the difference. That means 8% inflation. It's the classic case of more money chasing around the same amount of goods.
So it's pretty clear the money supply is our prime suspect. But in any good mystery, the main culprit almost never acts alone. So now we need to go investigate the accomplices, these other forces that are also helping to push prices up. And it turns out there are really three main accomplices here. The first one is directly tied to our prime suspect. But the other two, well, they bring some new twists to the story. We've got demand pull, cost push, and this really interesting psychological one, inflationary expectations.
So demand pull inflation is that classic scenario we just talked about. Way too much money chasing way too few goods, which pulls prices up. But cost push inflation, that's a whole different beast. This happens when it just gets more expensive to make things, like if oil prices suddenly spike or wages go up. Companies then have to push those higher costs onto us, the consumers, by raising their prices.
Now, this third accomplice might just be the most fascinating one, because it's all in our heads. Think about it. If everyone believes that prices are going to be higher tomorrow, what do? They rush out and buy stuff today, right? Before it gets more expensive. And that huge surge in demand actually causes the very price hikes everyone was afraid of. It's a total self-fulfilling prophecy.
All right, so we've identified the culprits. Now let's go check out the crime scene and really understand the real-world damage that inflation does to our financial lives.
And here's the bottom line. At its very core, inflation is like a silent thief. It just eats away at the purchasing power of your money. Every single dollar you work for, every dollar you save, it buys a smaller and smaller piece of the pie over time.
Check out this simple example to see what I mean. Let's say you've saved up $1,000 and a new iPhone costs exactly $1,000. Perfect. Your purchasing power is one iPhone. But what if you wait a year? And in that year, inflation goes crazy and the price of that same iPhone doubles to $2,000. You still have your $1,000, but now it only buys you half an iPhone. That's your purchasing power, just gone.
Okay, so now that we get the damage, we've got to learn a key detective skill. We need to know how to see through inflation's little tricks, especially when it comes to things like savings and investments. And that means understanding the huge difference between what's nominal and what's real.
So when you see a bank advertise an interest rate on a savings account, that's the nominal rate. It's the number on the sign. But the real rate is what you're actually earning after you factor in inflation. The real rate is the only thing that tells you if your purchasing power actually grew.
Now, to figure this out, we use a tool called the Fisher equation. There's a quick and dirty version that's a decent approximation when inflation is low. But when inflation starts to get high, you absolutely need to use the exact formula. And believe me, getting this right is crucial for anyone trying to save, invest, or even take out a loan.
Let's see why this matters so much. Imagine your investment is earning a nominal rate of 30%, and your goal is a real return of 7%. The simple formula would tell you that inflation is 23%. But if you run the numbers with the exact formula, you find out the actual inflation rate is 21.49%. That's a pretty big difference, and when you're dealing with your own money, that kind of precision is everything. Okay, now let's look at a really high inflation scenario to drive this home. Let's say inflation is a mind-boggling 97%, and you still want a 4% real return. The simple approximation says you need a nominal rate of 101%, but the exact formula, it shows you actually need almost 105%. The gap between the two gets way bigger, and using the wrong one could cause a massive miscalculation in your financial planning.
So, we've followed the clues, we've run the numbers. What have we actually learned from our investigation into the great mystery of rising prices?
Well, when you boil it all down, it really comes back to these three culprits. First, our prime suspect, the money supply growing way faster than the actual economy. Then you have its accomplices, rising production costs getting passed on to us, and that powerful self-fulfilling prophecy of our own expectations for the future. And that, right there, brings us to our final question. We've laid out all the evidence. We've identified the causes pretty clearly. So the real mystery might just be this. If we know what causes inflation, why is taming it still one of the toughest, most persistent challenges for governments and central banks all around the world? Now that is something to think about.